Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathaniel. I particularly love movies, and I want to share that with you. From the horrifying to the terrifying, the spine-chilling to the hair-raising, along with the straight-up disgusting. WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around, and we'll leave you with a movie that will make your blood run cold.
88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Wednesdays, the show where we talk about 3 movies all in the same night. And for tonight's episode, we are going to be taking a look at 3 movies that aren't exactly within an established trilogy. You know, they don't go from 1 to 2 to 3, although they do go from 1 to 2, and then the third movie's kind of a reboot, you know, but like, they're not exactly a 1, 2, 3 series, if that makes any sense. I will assure you, though, that the movies we're talking about tonight definitely fit the theme of October and it almost being Halloween. We're talking about something extremely classic, and it was something that was kind of recommended to me, so I figured, what the hey, might as well do it. Tonight, I'd like to ask you all, who you gonna call? We are going to be taking a look at Ghostbusters movies tonight. We're going to be starting off with the original Ghostbusters from 1984, followed up by Ghostbusters II from 1989, and closing out with Ghostbusters from 2016. That's the third movie I was talking about. That's a reboot that isn't a third movie. And yes, we are talking about the infamous Ghostbusters 2016 reboot, where they recast everybody. Wow, super scary. It's actually not that bad, guys, but don't take my word for it. Stick around and listen to the rest of the show where I'll tell you why it isn't so bad. Highly recommend it. Before we do that, though, we need to cover our starting point. So after the break, we're going to jump into the first, Ghostbusters. Stick around. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Ghostbusters from 1984, available to watch now on Hulu. For the basic plot summary of Ghostbusters, we follow 3 paranormal investigators who decide to start a ghost catching business in New York City, mainly because they got fired from their original jobs working at a university, and they clearly have nothing better to do with their time than go hunt ghosts. Who you gonna call, ladies and gentlemen? Who you gonna call? Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way as well. Ghostbusters is a classic of the 80s, like movies such as, you know, Back to the Future, the Star Wars series, other movies that are from the 80s that I've talked about before that for some reason are not coming to my brain because my memory is not that great. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that I need to acknowledge that Ghostbusters is a classic. And I also need to acknowledge the fact that from my own perspective, I don't exactly get it. Don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand me. I don't think Ghostbusters is a bad movie. I don't think it is a mediocre movie. I don't even think it's a just good movie. I think it's a great movie. It's amazing. It's great. It's hilarious. It's really entertaining. It's got some special little sauce to it. It's got that 80s feel. It's got that atmosphere, that overall vibe. You know what I'm saying, man? I sound hip like I'm from the 80s yet? No, I sound really cringe-inducing. Okay, that's fine. You understand what I'm saying? I've clarified myself? Good. I think the movie's good. However, I don't exactly understand why it got so popular. When I watch things like Back to the Future and Star Wars, I can look at them and go, okay, I can understand what about this feels so interesting. I mean, with Star Wars, it's, you know, in space with laser swords and all that fun stuff. And with Back to the Future, it's like, oh, a time travel story I can actually understand that's not for specky nerds, because it's for the general audience, and there's a funny bully in it. You know, Ghostbusters, I think the movie's good, but I don't exactly... You tell me, oh, it's about, like, paranormal investigations and, you know, science nerds running around with like nuclear reactors that shoot like laser beams. Like, sure, that second half sounds really great, but the whole paranormal investigator stuff, it's like, this is before the 2000s where we were like big on YouTube videos where we pretend to find ghosts in abandoned hotel rooms. You know what I mean? It feels like it shouldn't have gotten popular in the 80s. I don't know. And I get this feeling while watching the movie. This isn't just like an outsider's perspective. This is from watching the movie. I still don't understand exactly how it got popular. And if anybody was willing to enlighten me on how it got popular, I'd like attentively listen to them. Don't get me wrong. Again, do not get me wrong. I think the movie is funny. And I think that Bill Murray is fantastic. I think Dan Aykroyd's fantastic. I think Harold Ramis is fantastic. I think Ernie Hudson's also pretty good. Although I have a complaint that Ernie Hudson is not in the movie as much as he should be, but that's besides the point. The main four are great, and then you have characters played by Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver, which is awesome because I love Sigourney Weaver so very much. She's awesome, and she's just as good as Bill Murray in this movie. There's a lot of ingredients here to make a really good movie, and when it comes to comedy, Bill Murray is unmatched from his improvisational standpoint. That was not saying improvisational correctly, but whatever. And if it wasn't improvisational, I don't really care. It feels like it is because it's Bill Murray. That's just the detached attitude he brings to literally every single performance. So if it wasn't improv, I couldn't tell. Okay? That's how talented he is, and that's how funny he is. It feels like he's just saying stuff, knowing it's going to be funny, and running with it. That's what's great about him. It's very interesting from that perspective, too, because if anything, not that the other people do a bad job, it's almost like Bill Murray kind of overshadows everybody in this movie, and part of me feels like that could be the reason that it got so popular, because people were just like, wow, Bill Murray's hilarious, he's amazing, why don't we give him more credit? And it's like, that could be the reason that it got popular? But I still don't know, you know? And it's like, okay, yes, the main theme song is very catchy and it's very iconic and it's got this whole like attitude to it, and I like the song and everything like that, but I don't know. Part of the problem with the original Ghostbusters to me is that it's kind of slow paced. When you actually sit down and watch the thing, you realize, oh, there's plot progression. It gets to a certain point for sure. But the steps getting there feel a little slower than you'd expect from a movie from the 80s. You know, like comparing it to something like Back to the Future, where it's like boom, 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 go, go, go. We're going to go like time travel now. This is how it is. We're going to introduce it right here, right now. Are you ready to understand? It's Ghostbusters is like, okay, so we've lost our jobs and now we need to like get our business going. And it's like, oh, here's this, here's this. It's kind of dragging its feet almost a little bit, not particularly, but enough to the point where it's taking its time. And I know how like attention deficit this is coming across. Don't get me wrong. I know I sound like I'm impatient. And while I am impatient, I'm also just curious to understand, was the general audience equipped with enough attention span in 1980s America to get the same level of enjoyment out of this movie that led to it becoming such a cultural phenomenon and leading it to get this amount of hype? That's my big question. I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around the idea of Americans in 1984 having the attention span to watch something that's a little slower paced, especially in terms of a comedy movie with supernatural elements. You'd think that something like this would move faster. It's all just kind of an interesting thought exercise to me, and it's something that I feel like is never going to go away, but I hope it does eventually. Put quite frankly, when I first watched Ghostbusters, I didn't get it. I did not like it. I thought it was overrated. I did not find it funny all that much. And now that I've watched it again, I can honestly admit that it makes a lot more sense to me now than when I first watched it as like a very ignorant high schooler. So at least that much is improved. But I really hope at some point I just stop asking myself, why did this get popular, and can actually understand it for once. But that's not going to be today. So yeah, that's just what I have to say about Ghostbusters. I mean, it's great. I'd recommend it. I just don't entirely get it still. And that's just me. So, with all that being said, we are going to go to break, and when we come back, we will be taking a look at Ghostbusters 2. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Ghostbusters 2 from 1989, available to watch now on Peacock. For the basic plot summary of Ghostbusters 2, we pick up 5 years after the original movie, where the Ghostbusters must now reunite after being broken up in between the events of the last movie and this movie. They must now reunite to fight off a flood of paranormal slime that feeds off negative energy. And because they're in New York, and the slime is underground in New York, there's a lot of negative energy that's been fueling the slime, and it's a really bad combination. If anything, New York is the perfect place to pick if you really think about it. You know what else is interesting to really think about? The fact that this movie exists. Let's just start with like the very basic level of me asking the audience here a question. Do you guys even remember that this movie exists? Like, I've heard a couple people mention it in the past, but it's like, it definitely doesn't have the same cultural impact as the first movie, that's for sure. This movie is weird to me because it is unlike other movie series out there where sometimes they'll have like an entire trilogy made out of them. And then it's like sometimes a movie will have just a sequel that nobody really knows exists and they just kind of pretend like it doesn't. Or they don't exactly pretend like it doesn't exist, they just don't acknowledge it ever. And it's not like bad enough to completely condemn to the pits of the earth, but it's not all that great either. So it's like, it just ends up being fine. It's too mediocre to really be noteworthy. And that's the case with Ghostbusters 2, which is very interesting to me because let's examine the elements here, okay? We've got the same director, we've got the same two writers, Rick Moranis, Harold Ramis, and Dan Aykroyd writing the script. I keep getting Rick Moranis and Harold Ramis mixed up, and I don't know why. But we've got Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd writing the script. We've got Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, along with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver, all returning as cast members. We've got the same musical theme and then an updated theme as well. We've got basically all of the ingredients there to make a good follow-up to the first movie, and it just turns out mediocre. I don't exactly know how that happened, and I don't exactly know what to think of the movie as an end product in reality. There are some things to think about with Ghostbusters 2, namely the fact that there are moments where it falls into the category of it's just the first movie, but again, very creatively bankrupt. Great, we're just doing Ghostbusters again. Look at us, guys. We're trying to capitalize on it. There are other parts where it's clear to me that Bill Murray didn't want to be there and was just kind of phoning it in comparison to how he was in the first movie. Not everybody is phoning it in, but Bill Murray is the most noticeable one. He's definitely phoning it in. You also kind of get this weird menial improvement in certain ways. What I mean by that is like there are at least two elements in the first movie that are like for some reason improved in the sequel, but it's not like we have better dialogue, better character development, a better story. We have anything better from like a filmmaking perspective when it comes to, you know, cinematography or maybe even music sometimes. I mean, music's just the same as it was with the first movie. It's still pretty iconic, but nowhere near as big of a hit as the original Ray Parker Jr. song. So it's like, what's the point? It's like, there are two other elements that are technically spoilers, so I can't really go into them right now, but for some reason are better in the second movie when nothing else is really all that much better, but it's not like it's 10 times worse. You see what I'm getting at? This is where I get like really confused and really conflicted on where to put this in terms of a rating scale, in terms of like an understanding scale, in terms of a review scale, completely honestly. There are so many things that could like confuse you and just really get you twisted around with Ghostbusters 2. So I'm going to kind of zero in here and kind of condense my thoughts down. I think there are, in reality, two final points that I really have to make about Ghostbusters 2. Or at least, hopefully two, if I can remember the first one before I say it. So I'm going to go with the second point first. So, the first point, yes, counting is good. The first point that I want to mention about Ghostbusters 2 is I have this really strange ephemeral association with this movie. I remember like years ago, my dad flipping through the cable channels on the TV and just kind of scrolling through one night and eventually coming across Ghostbusters 2. It was in a scene wherein Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson are in a sewer or in a tunnel of some kind. And we just watched like a minute of that scene and then changed the channel. I just have remembered that for a very long time. And I think that was the moment that I realized, wait, there's a second Ghostbusters movie? I didn't know they made a second one. That, honestly, I think sums up the cultural impact of Ghostbusters 2. If you're scrolling through cable one day and you find it, you're going to be surprised that it even exists to begin with. And I think that's kind of almost a benefit for this movie because of how, like, mediocre and insubstantial it really feels in comparison to the first movie. It can still be funny at times, but overall it's just not the same package, even though so many of the same people are involved. And it leads me to ask how it happened, but I think it leans into the how it happened from my second point. My second point that I have actually remembered now is an understanding of, well, I failed to grasp why the first movie was such a big cultural impact, but I still liked the movie and still thought it was good. With Ghostbusters 2, I start to question why it was made, and I know the detail of, well, it was made for the money. It was made to capitalize on the first movie. But you gotta understand, I still don't understand how the first movie was a commercial success and was the hottest new thing. I still don't fully grasp why. So when you don't have that grasp, it's actually really hard to apply the logic of it was just made for the money. At least to me. You gotta can you maybe see where I'm coming from in that angle a little bit? If I can't understand why the first movie made a bunch of money, then I'm not gonna really understand why you're making a sequel for the money. Right? It's like the first time this has happened to me, and it's really thrown my brain for a loop. So we're going to move on. We're going to go to break so that I can unloop my brain just in time for the next movie, Ghostbusters from 2016. Stick around. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Ghostbusters from 2016, available to watch now on Hulu. For the basic plot of Ghostbusters from 2016 is as follows. Serving as a reboot of the Ghostbusters franchise, we follow three friends who are obsessed with the paranormal and decide to start a ghost-catching business in New York. Okay, here we go again. But what's the difference? Have you changed anything up? Well, let's think here. Yes, they have. They have decided to make the four main characters of this movie women instead of men. Whoa, mind blown. Wow, what a revolution. You've put women in the movie. Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's get this out of the way right now. Ghostbusters from 2016. Is it awful? No, it is not the worst movie I've ever seen. I've seen much worse. Is it that good? Also, no, it is not that very good. It is far from the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly not the best, and it is nowhere near the middle of the road. Is it better than the second movie? No. In my opinion, it's not better than the second movie. Which, I mean, isn't exactly hard, but it's not exactly easy to do either. So, there's that. Let's also address this. When this movie came out, there was a huge uproar over the fact that why are they recasting everybody? Why are they putting women in these movies? The Hollywood industry is getting way too political. We should not be putting women in this classic franchise that was full of 4 men as the main characters. I really like that doofy voice. I'm going to use that in the future now. That's awesome. That sounds like such like an annoying, pretentious film critic person on YouTube. That's exactly what they sound like. So, the people who were talking like that, in my opinion, should shut up. It has nothing to do with the fact that they just recast them with women. Sorry, that voice is still getting to me a little bit, but I'm going to address this. Oh, it's bad because it's got women. No, it's just bad because it's not funny, in my opinion, pretty heavily. But, you know, also, it's just not funny. That's the main reason this movie's not that good. It has nothing to do with the fact that the women aren't the funny ones. It's just, quite literally, I don't think the people making the movie knew how to be funny. Now, here's the thing. I have to address this as well. See, I'm not funny. But if I was funny, one thing I would avoid doing is continuing to talk and talk and talk and just kind of drag out a joke for as long as possible. And, you know, let it go and run its course and then let it die out and then keep going until it's funny again. That's something I'd avoid doing. Now, again, I'm not funny and I do that all the time. So I have to like address my own shortcomings as a person. But here's the difference. You guys have to listen to me for like half an hour on Wednesdays every week and maybe 2 hours on Saturdays if you tune into What to Watch Weekends. And not even the full 2 hours. It's more like an hour and a half. This movie went on for an hour and a half. And it's like just 4 characters doing it instead of one person on a college radio show doing it. So there's a big discrepancy there. Do you see why there's a big discrepancy there? And this is meant to be made by like a big Hollywood studio that has like well-paid writers who know what they're doing and actresses who are in theory talented but are not showing any of that talent on screen. That's the big issue with Ghostbusters 2016. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're women. It's everything to do with the fact that they aren't showing any talent as actors. You know? That's the problem. I will also say that I can't even like re-pick up my train of thought there. I think this movie started to melt my brain during the first 30 minutes. And it was really hard to start recovering. There were moments to myself where I was thinking, man, do I have a headache because this movie's just not that entertaining and is trying way too hard to be any amounts of funny? I think it's the movie, but I should probably start drinking some more water anyways. I think this movie suffers from a lack of understanding of what made the original good and focusing on the wrong elements. Like I said, with the first Ghostbusters, for as much as I don't understand it, I can fully give credit to Bill Murray being a major part of the movie's success. I can understand that element at the very least, and I suspect that being the reason for the first movie's success. I can acknowledge that Bill Murray sounds like he's improvising most of the time. That's part of his appeal as an actor. That's what makes him funny. He sounds detached. He sounds sarcastic. He sounds like he is just a naturally talented, improvisational, real person being an actor. That's his draw. The difference is you need to have an actor or actress who can do that. In your reboot, if you want to focus on that element in your reboot, I think you understand where I'm going with this. None of the actresses that are cast in this movie have that talent. As much as I liked Kate McKinnon, who arguably was the highlight of the 4, she did not have the talent to act like a normal person who's just sarcastic and detached and improvising everything. She just didn't have that magical sauce to her like Bill Murray did. It could have been recast with all new male actors, and I still think they would have had this problem. Again, the more we emphasize that it wasn't because they were just women, and it's because the movie wasn't good, the more that very annoying sounding commentator on YouTube loses his voice and sway over commentating on movies anymore. And I'm all for doing that. Oh, you just see it's bad because it's not well paced or it's not put together. Yes, thank you for actually showing some commentary and saying something of value other than it's bad because it's got women. It's that you just don't like it because it doesn't have Bill Murray. Like, let's acknowledge that. It's not Bill Murray. It's not because he's a man. It's because it's Bill Murray. Okay? Okay. Cool. Here's a really weird detail about Ghostbusters 2016. It ends better than it starts. That's the case for like the first and the second movie and this one as well. All of them weirdly end better than they start, and I don't know how to feel about that trend at all. I don't know why that's the case, why that's a running theme. And we'll see if that happens for any of the other movies when I talk about them on What to Watch Weekends this upcoming weekend. Speaking of which, thank you all for listening into What to Watch Wednesdays tonight. I'm going to cut myself off before I start going on a really wild tangent. So, thank you all for listening in to What to Watch Wednesdays tonight. I will be back this upcoming Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg for What to Watch Weekends, where I will hopefully have time to watch and be able to talk about the other Ghostbusters movies, such as Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I believe it's called. So, highly recommend tuning into that, again, this Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. I will also be back next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg for another episode of What to Watch Wednesdays. If you want to follow along with either show, What to Watch Wednesdays or What to Watch Weekends, please follow along at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces, on Instagram and YouTube. Again, I will be back next Wednesday telling you all what to watch. Good night, everybody.